Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Do Hongyu. Coming up in this edition, an Israeli airstrike has hit Iran's state television broadcaster when it was live on air. The conflict between Israel and Iran has prompted U.S. President Donald Trump to cut short his trip to the G7 summit in Canada. And Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed the country's readiness to work with Kazakhstan to contribute more to regional and world peace and development. We begin in the Middle East. An Israeli airstrike has hit Iran's state television broadcaster when it was live on air. The Islamic Republic of Iran news network says 4 Israeli bombs hit the building, killing 3 people. A spokesperson for the Iranian foreign minister described targeting Iran's news agency during a live broadcast as a war crime. Israel and Iran have been trading missiles since Friday. Iran says it will not negotiate a ceasefire while it's under Israeli attack. Israel says its operation in Iran will take weeks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the Israeli Air Force is controlling the skies over Tehran. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
As day 4 of the war between Israel and Iran is coming to an end, there is perhaps an indication from Tehran that Iran may be looking for the road outside of this conflict. Unconfirmed reports, we have to say no confirmation whatsoever, but these unconfirmed reports suggest that Iran turned to 3 of America's allies in the region, Oman, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, asking them to put pressure on the United States, for it to put pressure on Israel to head for a ceasefire. In return, Iran would be accepting much more flexibility when it comes to the nuclear talks with the Trump administration, something the Iranians did not do in the previous rounds of negotiations. No confirmation for this report, and as it seems, no acceptance at all on behalf of Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was asked on this issue on Monday evening, saying, "I'm not surprised that the Iranians are looking for a way out. Is this an indication that, at least for now, Israel is not willing to stop? Maybe so." Israel, of course, is targeting again and again all over Iran, especially in the capital, Tehran, being the symbolic city that it is. And yes, Israel is clearly succeeding, but the success comes with a heavy price, a very heavy price. Night after night, ballistic missiles coming from Iran are able to penetrate the Israeli missile defense system. They land, they make impact in various cities, and every morning Israelis wake up to the sight of destruction that these missiles inflict, to the news of more and more people being killed. And there's just a certain amount of time as to how much the Israeli public can stand this, can stand the closure that this country is going through at this time.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. In Europe, the International Atomic Energy Agency says there has been no further damage at the Natanz nuclear enrichment plant in Iran since Israel's attacks on Friday. The chief of the UN nuclear watchdog says it was likely that all centrifuges running at the biggest uranium enrichment plant in Iran were badly damaged due to a power cut caused by an Israeli airstrike. Another nuclear facility site in Isfahan sustained damages to 4 of its buildings, including a uranium conversion plant. Johannes Pleshberger has more from the IAEA headquarters in Vienna.
After the IAEA reported the destruction of above-ground facilities at Iran's nuclear Natanz site, the Vienna agency on Monday released further damage details at another nuclear enrichment plant Israeli forces struck on Friday.
At the Isfahan nuclear site, 4 buildings were damaged in Friday's attack: the Central Chemical Laboratory, a uranium conversion plant.
During an exceptional IAEA board meeting, agency chief Rafael Grossi said there was no sign of further damage at Iran's Natanz or Fordo enrichment plants, while radiation levels outside the sites remained normal. Within the Natanz facility, there was both radiological and chemical contamination, Grossi said. Meanwhile, a number of countries condemned Israel's attack at the IAEA meeting.
the large majority of countries of the board and also observers are considering this aggression by Israel unlawful, which is a very important statement to make.
Iran's permanent representative to the IAEA, Reza Najafi, said Iran will continue to respond with full force against Israeli attacks, referring to its right to self-defense.
The IAEA and its Director General had a clear responsibility to take effective preventive and deterrent measures. The board must condemn Israeli aggression in its strongest term and hold it accountable. Otherwise, consequences would be with those appeasing this aggressor child killer regime.
The IAEA says it will remain present in Iran with safeguard inspections resuming as soon as safety conditions allow, as required under Iran's nuclear non-proliferation treaty obligations. Iranian officials, however, responded that expectations Tehran will continue its voluntary commitments to the treaty are unjustified when its nuclear facilities are freely targeted by a non-member.
That was Johannes Pleshberger reporting. Turning to North America, the conflict between Israel and Iran has prompted U.S. President Donald Trump to cut short his trip to the G7 summit in Canada. The White House says Trump returned to Washington due to the crisis in the Middle East. A G7 statement has called for a de-escalation of the conflict, but a U.S. official says Trump will not sign the statement. Mitch McCann has more from Alberta.
It's been reported that that document has been agreed to by all G7 countries apart from the United States, and now it's been reported by US media that the United States and Donald Trump has no intention of signing the document. The document itself is reportedly short and only contains 3 points. Number one, Israel has the right to defend itself. Number two, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And number three, they are calling for a de-escalation in the conflict. Now, Donald Trump has just spoken in the last hour alongside the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. Mr. Trump was asked about this situation and whether or not Iran was trying to talk and come to the negotiating table. Donald Trump said that Iran had 60 days to talk already. He's referring to the time the US gave Iran to come to the negotiating table to come to a deal when it comes to nuclear power. He was also asked what it would take for the US to become involved in this military conflict. Donald Trump simply said, "I don't want to talk about that." So plenty of points to come from that press conference this morning. Another interesting point here is that Russia has indirectly become involved in the fact that Russia said it is willing to help negotiations. Now, Donald Trump said that he was open to that, but that has been flatly rejected by another G7 leader, Emmanuel Macron of France, who said it would be inappropriate because Russia has violated the UN Charter for several years and should not be involved in this.
That was Mitch McCann reporting. In Asia, Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed the country's readiness to work with Kazakhstan to contribute more to regional and world peace and development. President Xi made the remarks while meeting his Kazakh counterpart Kassym-Jomart Tokayev ahead of the second China Central Asia Summit in Astana. The two leaders discussed how to strengthen the bilateral friendship and upgrading cooperation across various sectors. Liao Liang has more.
During the talks, President Xi said China and Kazakhstan enjoy strong ties built on close geography and deep friendship. And expressed readiness to work with President Tokayev to deepen cooperation and contribute to regional and global peace and development.
Your Excellency President Tokayev, my old friend, China-Kazakhstan relations have stood the test of shifting international circumstances and have consistently maintained a high level of development. This is made possible by our geographical proximity, the long-standing friendship between our peoples, and the natural choice of both countries to pursue development together. I am ready to work with you to firmly strengthen the China-Kazakhstan friendship, advance comprehensive cooperation in all areas, and contribute more stability and positive momentum from our bilateral ties to peace and development in the region and beyond.
Xi emphasized deepening strategic trust, aligning development strategies, and supporting each other's core interests. He called for upgrading cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative, enhancing trade, investment, energy ties, cross-border railways and high-tech cooperation while promoting green development. He also stressed strengthening security cooperation, jointly fighting the three evil forces of terrorism, separatism, and extremism, and expanding law enforcement and defense exchanges. Xi highlighted the importance of people-to-people exchanges, including the Kazakhstan-China Tourism Year. On global issues, Xi urged both sides to uphold the UN-centered international system, support true multilateralism, and defend the interests of developing countries. Tokayev expressed Kazakhstan's willingness to deepen strategic cooperation and expand partnerships in trade, investment, industry, agriculture, energy, transport, culture, education, sports, and tourism. After the talks, the two leaders witnessed the signing of over 10 bilateral cooperation agreements covering trade, investment, science and technology, customs, tourism, and media.
That was Liao Liang reporting. For more on the second China Central Asia Summit, Zhong Shi spoke to Chair Professor Rong Ying at Sichuan University.
This China Central Asia Summit in Astana comes 2 years after the first one in Xi'an. In China, how does this summit contribute to regional and global economic stability?
I think the mechanism itself definitely demonstrate that the two sides, China on the other and the 5 Central Asian states, are committed to working together despite the differences in terms of the level of development and also in terms of the changes unprecedented, in the world, in the region and the world. And this is, of course, very much taken place in the backdrop where the two sides agreed that were going to not only have put place a mechanism, but most importantly, follow the commitment and agreement that have been reached under that mechanism. So this is very much, I think, serve the mutual interest on the China for a good neighborhood relationship with South Asia, Central Asian states and Central Asia, which is, I think, looking for more stable and healthy partners for their own development.
How can member states work together to better pursue development of the whole region through the China Central Asia Summit?
The China Central Asia mechanism has first and foremost provide a kind of platform where the 6 countries working together as a group. As we know, politically, the two sides or the 6 countries as working as one, because it's a the relation if you look at the relationship, there's a kind of very unique feature where the 6 countries it all has established kind of a strategic partnership, and they're all committed to building the BRI, and last but not least, I think, to a vision of building a community shared future. So politically, there's a very strong foundation, and economically, there's a huge potentialities. But with that political foundation, political trust, and now they are committed to translate that political trust into concrete result. Last but not least, I think the cultural and the people-to-people interaction has also been developing very steadily. Some of the most important countries between China and if you look at the visas and tourism, they are growing very fast. So working together as a group, as one, definitely is going to show that they are going to bring more sort of benefits.
That was Chair Professor Rong Ying at Sichuan University sharing his insights on the second China Central Asia Summit. Before we go, here's a recap of today's top stories. An Israeli airstrike has hit Iran's state television broadcaster when it was live on air. The conflict between Israel and Iran has prompted U.S. President Donald Trump to cut short his trip to the G7 summit in Canada. And Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed the country's readiness to work with Kazakhstan to contribute more to regional and world peace and development. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports, and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Do Hongyu. Thank you for listening.